In today's video, I'll discuss who I believe will be the top 10 midfielders for Supercoach 2022. And yeah, rank them in order. And the criteria is, as it was with the last video I did with defenders, these are the players I want when my team is finished. So in order, which midfielders I prefer. So I did a list of this a few weeks ago and slightly changed a little bit since then, but still pretty similar for the most part. But I will be able to elaborate a bit more on why certain players are in certain spots. So I think we get started. And yeah, definitely spot for choice in the midfield. You really can't go too wrong with a lot of these guys. But it will be interesting to see which midfielders get out of control early. So I think Macrae many years ago was averaging 140 over the first 7-8 weeks. It was unbelievable to watch, and he pretty much continued it for most of the year. I think he did a hamstring in that year as well, but many years ago now. So it'll be interesting to see who is that midfielder this year. But nonetheless, we'll start. So my M1 is Jack Steele. So just looking at the stats before, 130 average with Marshall in the team, 120 without Marshall. So fully expect Marshall to be there in round one. Plus, he also had a few games without Ryder and Marshall as well. So you would expect collectively they play more games this year than they did last year. So, but nonetheless, regardless, he'll still score really, really well. And not really much to expand on Jack Steele. The amount of his tackle count is huge. His work rate is huge. Already impressing in the preseason. I think that's not surprising to anyone. So he is the captain option for me. And yeah, back half of the year was much stronger than the first half of the year. So lock him in. No way he exits my team. Hasn't moved from my side. So yep, huge scoring avenues. And yeah, I'll speak about Tuck Miller, where the similarities lie in. You know, some people thought maybe Jack Steele doesn't back it up this year. Some people are saying, well, they're not really sure if Tuck Miller backs it up this year. I guess fair enough. You know, we've seen Macrae and Oliver back it up for years now, but we'll get to that in a second when we speak about Tuck Miller. So M2 for me is one Jackson Macrae, just been announced as vice captain, which is great. Super hard worker, Jack Macrae, or vice captain of the Dogs. So yeah, he's I'm sure internally what he's been able to produce has not been unnoticed, but you know, isn't the flashiest player, but just gets it done every single week. He'll give you 30 every week, and in the grand final, we saw him get taken out the middle, 50% CBAs, a bit disappointing from Beveridge. So does he have to spend some time on a wing, which he's done in the past? I don't know, but I think they'd be pretty silly not to, because the best version of the Bulldogs is quite clearly Macrae in the midfield. So yeah, we saw how that grand final went. So look, expecting high 120s average. He's never going to get maximum CBAs because he plays for the Dogs. So any other team probably goes 135. But I think with the Dogs, high 120s given the amount of sharing of points. So lock him away. Most proven player is probably behind Ablett and maybe Dangerfield as well. Maybe Pendlebury. Maybe in terms of best Supercoach options of all time. Maybe there's others I'm forgetting. Gorn's been unreal. So definitely top 5 Supercoach all time, and he's still 27. So at 27, that's prime age. So yep, easy pick. Macrae in. So third, is it Took? Is it Oliver? Is it even Tom Mitchell? Is it Marcus? For me, it's Took. So is Tuck Miller going to replicate last year? I think he does. The way I see this on whether a player will replicate the year from the year before, you know, all else has to be equal. They have to, you know, great preseason again, good age bracket. For me, I look at the work ethic off the field, and it was why I was calling Williams a trap all last preseason, because not only is his durability bad, but I'm talking about Zach Williams, by the way, but he came back unfit, and you don't see Tuck Miller. He's not coming back unfit. He's come back in unreal shape. He's been doing freaking Iron Man training or something in the off season. So look, Tuck Miller, a bit like Steele, tackles a lot. Isn't that big body? He's not built like a mountain like Steele, but the work rate is unbelievable. It's not only his ability to get from contest to contest, but how quickly he gets it. So I do feel sorry for anyone trying to tag Tuck, because it's going to be a rough day. You probably spew up at halftime. But yeah, Took's going to back it up. You look at the character of the guy. He signed for Gold Coast, and he's trying to he's trying to lead that team. You know, it's very hard to make the Gold Coast Suns, you know, where they are and how they've been the past 10 years. to to make them a successful club. And what he's doing is just unbelievable leadership and unbelievable, so much respect for his character for signing that big deal at Gold Coast. So, and he's already said, I think a few weeks ago, there was a quote early January, my job is to perform consistently at a high level every week. So that is Touk Miller. That's who he is. He's not going to have a bad year. I don't see it. There's nothing that suggests that he won't back it up. He's still 25, 26 as well. So Touk Miller, fully expecting almost close to 130. So see if you can build on that as well. So locked for me. So M4 is Clayton Oliver. So the main thing with Oliver is in 2021, had the shoulder, I think it was surgery. I'm not exactly sure what the issue with the shoulder was, what's the specific shoulder injury, but having a full preseason this year, scary prospect. He's still so young. I think he's 24, 25. Been primo for 4 years now, 4 or 5 years, and he hasn't even hit mid-20s. So safe pick. Is susceptible to the odd tag and does have a bit of a lower floor than other players. So more or less, there's going to be times where Oliver, he'll hit 700k and bad luck, you can't get him. But there will also be times where it will be 600k, and that's when, fingers crossed you can get him. So I think he dipped below 600 twice last year, something from memory, but it's a bit about timing. So perfectly great starting pick. Fully expecting 120, mid 120s average from Clayton Oliver. Hasn't quite hit the ceiling of the other guys. So for that reason, he's in 4th. 5th I have is Tom Mitchell. Tom Mitchell, really? I think people forget, this guy was basically the fantasy king. He was the #1 player in the game in his Brownlow year. And we thought that he was going to continue that, above Macrae back then. We thought he was going to continue that, broke the leg, had a sore shoulder, pretty bad shoulder issue for a while as well. So now he's having a full preseason. He said, I think it was on DT Talk, they do a great podcast over there where, they interviewed him and he said, he's the fittest he's ever been. But they also asked him about, is he going to have to spend time a little bit more forward? Sounds like he will start off the flank a little bit, but he did do that a little bit in 2021. So, Sam Mitchell, it's pretty obvious given the fact that he tried to get rid of a few of these senior midfielders in the trade period. Sam Mitchell is trying to do a rebuild, and he needs to get games into a lot of the players, some of the midfielders he coached at Box Hill. Their young draftees looked like scored really well in NAB League. So how much mid-time gets taken away from Tom Mitchell to blood minutes into these kids? And that's the only concern. So maybe Sam Mitchell doesn't like the way Tom Mitchell, just racks up a little bit. Still gets a lot of good disposal, but every now and then a bit of unnecessary disposals on the wing, that sort of thing. So what sort of impact is Sam Mitchell going to have there? I considered him a lock for my side, but that's my only issue with the Tom Mitchell pick. So fully fit, he full mid-time, fully fit. He's probably M1 just about, to be honest. But nonetheless, there's a few minor issues here. But we saw him have a great second half of the year, almost average 130. So fully expecting somewhere in the 120s for Tom Mitchell, maybe on the lower side. But it all depends on how Sam Mitchell chooses to, how many minutes in the midfield he gets. But he's still their best player. He'll still get plenty of mid minutes. It's just I think it'll be reduced a little bit to give more time to the young guys. So that's what I think anyway. I could be dead wrong on that. So that's something we'll watch in the preseason. But we know in preseason trial games, I think he's been playing more forward and wing. But I fully assume that is because it's trial games. Like, he doesn't really need to train midfield more. He knows how to do it in the midfield. So give the other kids a go. So we'll see how he goes at the start of the season. So one where I still would feel good starting him. It's just over these guys, it's a little tough when there's no issues with these guys and potentially a small issue with Tom Mitchell. So that's all on Tom Mitchell, probably enough on him. But that's the only reason why he's not higher on this list. Star fantasy scorer. And star player. So the next player I have I've gone with Marcus. So Marcus was M1, and Marcus is one player where on any other team with max mid minutes, 130 plus, I think. So best player in the league for mine. Has a great contested game, kicks I don't know, 1.5 goals a game, somewhere in that range, 1 to 1.5 goals a game. Yeah, massive contested game, great at clearance. So yeah, covers the ground exceptionally well, unbelievably well. And I think I even read he covers more ground than Macrae, I think, which is surprised me a little bit. But yeah, massive fitness base. So he doesn't score as well with Dunkley in the team, but as the other thing with this as well is I'm almost convinced that he hurt his shoulder around round 14, round 15 last year, and ever since that incident, his scoring dropped off to, I think it was sub 110 for the last 6 or 7 rounds, something like that. So before that, he was going 130 odd. So that's my only issue with what happened there. With his scoring last year, because if he continued that form that he was in the first 2/3 of the year, he'd be much higher on this list. So look, a little bit of point sharing, maybe the shoulder bothered him a bit, but we never got info that the shoulder was actually an issue. So I think that's enough on Bont, but yeah, fully expect 120-ish from Marcus. So see how that goes. But yeah, big fan of Marcus. The next player I have is Sam Walsh. So Bont or Walsh, tough one. Walsh probably will get, Walsh has massive time on ground, 90% time on ground. He has more help now. George Hewitt and Adam Chera are coming to the midfield mix. And Hewitt will probably play that defensive mid. All the blocking, all the things you don't see that he did for Parker and Kennedy for all those years. So you would think that only helps Sam Walsh. So yeah, just signed a 4-year deal as well. So Carlton fans will be ecstatic with that. Definitely a player I'll look to get in my team. Has the first buy, if buys even exist this year, but yeah, perfect upgrade target after the buy, but also perfectly good starting pick. Slowly been improving every year since he came into the league. Only been in the league 3 years, and yeah, massive work ethic. Covers more ground than anyone in the entire league. I think it was averaging 15 Ks a game, something like that. Nobody did 15 Ks a game, so quite scary that he's 21 and doing this. But yeah, not much else to say on Walsh. Great inside game, great outside game. So with a new midfielder setup, you would think it helps him a little bit, but you can never be sure. But yeah, Sam Walsh could easily break into this top bracket, but we haven't really seen it yet. So yeah, it's a huge ask to match up with these guys. So see how he goes. Now the next midfielder. Okay, this is a bit of a hot take, this one. I've actually gone with Callum over Lachie Neale. So with Callum Mills, apparently last year, so his average was 112. That should have been higher, but he had an injury game, and the last few games he was playing very sore. So really, he's probably a 115, 116, 117 average, 17 average. There was an article in the Herald Sun saying that I think he had to he had to move mountains every game just to get up for games with his Achilles issue. I'm not sure if it still is an issue, but nonetheless, Callum Mills, unbelievably good scorer, tackles heaps, finds a heap of the ball on the inside and the outside. Pretty good ball user as well. So Mills, another reason why I've put him really high on this list, and I guess some people would probably disagree with this take anyway, but they have no more George Hewitt in the midfield. There was an article the other day saying Josh P. Kennedy, they are looking to move him out of the midfield. So it's just Mills, Parker, and now Heaney's going into the midfield as well. So probably give more minutes to Chad Warner, Roy Bottom and stuff, those sort of players. But he is the number 1 midfielder, and there's probably more room for points in that midfield now. So I can see Mills going 120 plus this year. Hopefully he is fully fit, and I don't think he's a good starting pick because of his durability, but nonetheless, big fan of Callum Mills. So yeah, bit of a spicy-ish one there, but yeah. Next player I have, and this player was quite hard to put somewhere, and I could be well off the mark here, but I have at 9 Lachie Neale. So I think Lachie Neale will go high 110s, low 120s. I'm not sure he gets back to what he was, but all the signs are saying that he's in unbelievable form, unbelievable preseason, actually having a preseason for a change, which is nice for him. So we saw what he could do, absolute wizard at stoppages, putting meters on his opponent when he was getting on the ball and breaking free of clearance, getting the handballs away super easily, tough around the core, just great player, does all the things Supercoaches want. maybe except for contested marking, but that's fine. He'll still be a great mid and not contested mark. And most of these guys don't really contested mark outside of Bont, really. So I think Mills does a little bit, can't remember. But yeah, look, it's hard to, given how many injuries he's had, maybe I take points off him because of his injury games, but he's been durable for the most part. So, but has had issues with his preseasons in the past, but not this one apparently. So Lachie Neale, I have him at 9, maybe too low. I don't think he's in this top 4 bracket. I think he's more with the next few. So see how he goes. But yeah, given the dramatic fall last year, I doubt he's Brownlow level, but wouldn't surprise me if he gets close to it. So yeah, does all the great things for Supercoach, does Lachie Neale. And the final player used to be, I think Laird used to be in this mix, but he's not in there anymore. I'll explain that in a second. I've Christian Petracca. So with Petracca, the only issue why he isn't higher is because he plays a bit more forward as centre. Quite often, well, he has less opportunity to get to the ball because, you know, when the ball's in Melbourne's defence, Oliver is at the stoppage, and usually Petracca is at halfback or somewhere in the centre. So instead of going to that defensive stoppage, he'll be a bit more forward of the ball. So less opportunity to get clearances and contested ball there, stuff like that. But yeah, developed a good outside game. Yeah, and unbelievably super good inside game, high time on ground. And his second half of the year was 120 plus. So, or at least the last 10, something like that. So should he replicate that? Could he get even better? I don't see why not. But, you know, especially the first half of the year, his kicking was quite awful. So I did improve as the year went on. So well, that's from memory anyway. So see how he goes. Maybe Petracca's a little bit higher on this list, just because of his only 111 average this year, or in 2021 rather. But nonetheless, see how he goes, and did prove over the second half of the year that he can match it with, you know, go about 120 plus. So yeah, big fan of Petracca. So that's my 10. If I had to do the next 2, it would have to be, I've missed Lions. So why no Lions? Well, Lions scores better without Neale. Neale's back, pretty simple. But yeah, Lions fully expect him, and I think he's nearly 30 as well, so I don't think that affects him too much. Was preserved a bit more earlier in his career. Laird, tough omission Laird, I think with the Crouch coming back. I don't know how that affects him, so I think he'll be around that 115 mark still, but yeah, very tough to go with the big dogs. Mera and Parrish are probably the other 2. Parrish is a weird one. Just had some shocking games towards the back end of the year, but had some games where you would have thought that he'd be M1, M2, the way he was scoring. So yeah, absolute clearance machine, Parrish. So yeah, and developed a massive tank as well. Tank had always been an issue for him early in his career, but apparently not anymore. And Zach Merritt doesn't win enough contested ball really, but I'm probably expecting the same sort of output from Zach Merritt. So look, from Mills onward, from Mills to the next 6 players, you can, like, they're all perfectly fine M8s. There's nothing in between them. Maybe Neale's a little low on my list, but yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, and yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one, which will be Rucks.